All right, welcome back, boys and girls. We are going to get started on a little bit of a um, background of the one and only Ivan that we started yesterday, and then we're going to move on to our um, questions for today. So, yesterday we got started with the one and only Ivan, so we kind of dipped our toes in, and so now we're going to do a little bit of vocabulary now that you kind of know what the story is going to be about, and we'll get moving here. So our vocabulary study is, one word is majestic. And so we have majestic, trilling, feeble-minded, lush, threadbare, and shrill. Over on the right-hand side, we have some definitions that will go with that. So the first one is without good sense or foolish, worn out and shabby looking, grand and dignified like royalty, growing thickly and healthily, making a vibrating sound or a high-pitched ear splitting. So we want to match these words up with these definitions. And these words we heard yesterday with the beginning of the story. So hopefully you took a moment. Majestic would be grand and dignified. We have trilling. We really aren't quite sure about trilling. That's a word I haven't really heard before. We have feeble-minded, so we're going to use process of elimination. And we're going to go over to feeble-minded, which would be without good sense and foolish. Lush, hopefully you see growing thickly and healthily. Threadbare would be worn out and shabby. And then shrill would be a high-pitched ear splitting. So hopefully after you went through all of that, trilling would be making a vibrating sound using process of elimination. So then a simile is a figure of speech that uses the words like or as to compare two things. Ivan uses many similes to explain his thoughts. For example, Ivan thinks Julia's pictures are like a piece of a dream. So you're going to see that today when we're reading, we're going to meet Julia. So here's a multiple choice question that might show up as one of your quiz questions. What does Stella call the chains she wore in her youth? Are they bracelets, metal strings, snakes, or leg scratchers? And then number 2, Ivan describes himself as an acrobat, artist, astronaut, or athlete. Our short answer, and we talked about this, Ivan is a silverback gorilla, and that was one of your questions yesterday. What did we learn about silverback gorillas in these chapters? And then, what does Ivan think of humans? And he kind of mentions that throughout. All right. A little extra, what do you think of places like circuses and zoos that lock up animals for people's enjoyment? And we actually had a Scholastic News about that when we were talking about zoos and how some people are for zoos and some people think that zoos aren't something that they like to see. And then we did the pros and cons and we learned a lot about zoos. If you were to give this a title, what would you call it? What happens in these chapters? These are just things for you to reflect on. What was your favorite part of the book? And then what are some new words that you learned? All right, so we are going to get started on reading our story right now. So we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday, and it starts with gone. Some animals live privately, unwatched, but that is not my life. My life is flashing lights and pointing fingers and uninvited visitors. Inches away, humans flatten their little hands against the wall of glass that separates us. The glass says, you are this, and we are that, and this is how it will always be. Humans leave their fingers behind, sticky with candy, slick with sweat. Each night, a weary man comes to wipe them away. Sometimes I press my nose against the glass. My nose print, like your fingerprint, is the first and last and only one. The man wipes the glass, and then I and gone. Artists. Here in my domain, I do not have much to do. You can only throw so many meatballs at humans before you get bored. A meatball is made by rolling up dung until it's the size of a small apple, then letting it dry. I always keep a few on hand. For some reason, my visitors never seem to carry any. In my domain, I have a tire swing, a baseball, and a plastic pool filled with dirty water, and even an old TV. I have a stuffed toy gorilla too. Julia, the daughter of the weary man who cleans the mall each night, gave it to me. The gorilla has empty eyes and floppy limbs, but I sleep with it every night. I call it Not Tag. Tag was my twin sister's name. Julia's 10 years old. She has hair like black glass and a wide half-moon smile. She and I have a lot in common. We are both great apes, and we are both artists. It was Julia who gave me my first crayon, a stubby blue one, slipped through the broken spot in my glass along with a folded piece of paper. I knew what to do with it. I watched Julia draw, and when I dragged that crayon across the paper, it left a trail in its wake like a slithering blue snake. Julia's drawings are wild with color and movement. She draws things that aren't real, clouds that smile and cars that swim. She draws until her crayons break and her paper rips. Her pictures are like pieces of a dream. So there was that simile that they were talking about. So her pieces are like pieces of a dream. They're making her pictures like a dream. I can't draw dreamy pictures. I never remember my dreams, although I sometimes awaken with my fist clenched and my heart pounding or hammering. My drawings seem pale and timid next to Julia's. She draws the ideas in her head. I draw the things in my cage. Simple items that fill my days. An apple core and a banana peel, a candy wrapper. I often eat my subjects before I draw them. But even though I draw the same things over and over again, I never get bored with my art. When I'm drawing, that's all I think about. I don't think about where I am, about yesterday or tomorrow. I just move my crayons across the paper. Humans don't always seem to recognize what I've drawn. They squint, they cock their heads, they murmur. I'll draw a banana, a perfectly lovely banana, and they'll say, "It's a yellow airplane," or "It's a duck without wings." That's all right. I'm not drawing for them. I'm drawing for me. Mac soon realized that people will pay for a picture made by a gorilla even if they don't know what it is. Now I draw every day. My work sells for $20 a piece, 25 with a frame, at the gift shop near my domain. If I get tired and need a break, I eat my crayons. Shapes and clouds. I think I've always been an artist. Even as a baby, still clinging to my mother, I had an artist's eye. I saw shapes in the clouds and sculptures in the tumbled stones at the bottom of a stream. I grabbed at colors, the crimson flower just out of reach, the ebony bird streaking past. I don't remember much about my early life, but I do remember this. Whenever I got the chance, I would dip my fingers into the cool mud and use my mother's back for a canvas. She was a patient soul, my mother. Do you notice that it's always the word I? So you can think about who's telling the story. So is it first person or third person? And we learned this right before we left on break. And so if you're seeing the word I, you'll notice that the story is being told in first person. And Ivan is the one telling the story. Imagination. Someday, I hope I can draw the way Julia draws, imagining worlds that don't yet exist. I know what most humans think. They think gorillas don't have imaginations. They think we don't remember our past or ponder our futures. Come to think of it, I suppose they have a point. Mostly I think about what is, not what could be. I've learned not to get my hopes up. The loneliest gorilla in the world. So you kind of notice that up at the top of each little section, they kind of have a little bit of a title here. When the big top mall was first built, it smelled of new paint and fresh hay, and humans came to visit from morning till night. They drifted past my domain like logs on a lazy river. So there's another simile. He's making the logs right here. They drifted past like logs on a lazy river. So he's talking about um, when the humans would come. They would just keep walking past. Lately, a day might go by without a single visitor. Max says he worries. He says I'm not cute anymore. He says, Ivan, you've lost your magic, old guy. You used to be a hit. It's true that some of my visitors don't linger the way they used to. They stare through the glass. They cluck their tongues. They frown while I watch my TV. He looks lonely, they say. Not long ago, a little boy stood before my glass, tears streaming down his smooth red cheeks. He must be the loneliest gorilla in the world, he said, clutching his mother's hand. At times like that, I wish humans could understand me the way that I understand them. It's not so bad, I want to tell the little boy. With enough time, you can get used to almost anything. So hopefully you're kind of grasping how Ivan feels about being in his cage. This one's called TV. My visitors are often surprised when they see the TV Mac put in my domain. They seem to find it odd, the sight of a gorilla staring at tiny humans in a box. Sometimes I wonder, though, isn't that the way they stare at me, sitting in my tiny box, just as strange? My TV is old, it doesn't always work, and sometimes days will go by before anyone remembers to turn it on. I'll be watching anything, but I'm particularly fond of cartoons. With their bright jungle colors, I especially enjoy it when someone slips on a banana peel. Bob, my friend, my dog friend, loves TV almost as much as I do. He prefers to watch professional bowling and cat food commercials. Bob and I have seen many romance movies too. In a romance, there is much hugging and sometimes face licking. I have yet to see a single romance starring a gorilla. We also enjoy old Western movies. In a Western, someone will always say, "This town ain't big enough for the both of us, Sheriff." In a Western, you can tell who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. And the good guys always win. Bob says Westerns are nothing like real life. The Nature Show. I have been in my domain for 9,855 days, alone. For a while, when I was young and foolish, I thought I was the last gorilla on earth. I tried not to dwell on it. Still, it's hard to stay upbeat when you think there are no more of you. Then one night, after I watched a movie about men in black hats with guns and feeble-minded horses, a different show came on. It was not a cartoon, not a romance, not a Western. I saw a lush forest. I heard birds murmuring. The grass moved, the trees rustled. Then I saw him. He was a bit threadbare and scrawny, and not as good looking as I am, to be honest, but sure enough, he was a gorilla. As suddenly as he appeared, the gorilla vanished, and in his place was a scruffy white animal called, I learned, a polar bear, and then a chubby water creature called a manatee, and then another animal, and another. All night I sat wondering about the gorilla that I'd glimpsed. Where did he live? Would he ever come to visit? If there was a he somewhere, could there be a she as well? Or was it just the two of us in all of the world trapped in our own separate boxes? Stella. Stella says she is sure I will see another real live gorilla someday, and I believe her because she is even older than I am and has eyes like black stars and knows more than I will ever know. Stella is a mountain. Next to her, I am a rock, and Bob is a grain of sand. Every night when the stores close and the moon washes the world with milky light, Stella and I talk. We don't have much in common, but we have enough. We are huge and alone, and we both love yogurt raisins. Sometimes Stella tells stories of her childhood, of leafy canopies hidden by mists and the busy songs of flowing water. Unlike me, she recalls every detail of her past. Stella loves the moon with its untroubled smile. I love the feel of the sun on my belly. She says, "It is quite a belly, my friend." And I say, "Thank you, and so is yours." We talk, but not too much. Elephants, like gorillas, do not waste words. Stella used to perform in a large and famous circus, and she still does some of those tricks for our show. During one stunt, Stella stands on her hind legs while Snickers jumps on her head. It's hard to stand on your hind legs with the weight when you weigh more than 40 men. If you are a circus elephant and you stand on your hind legs while a dog jumps on your head, you get a treat. If you do not, the claw stick comes swinging. Once, Stella saw a trainer hit a bull elephant with a claw stick. A bull is like a silverback noble, contained, calm like a cobra is calm. When that claw stick caught the bull's flesh, he tossed the trainer up into the air with his tusk. The man flew, Stella said, like an ugly bird. She never saw the bull again. And there's Stella. Stella's trunk is a miracle. She can pick up a single peanut with elegant precision, tickle a passing mouse, tap the shoulder of a dozing keeper. Her trunk is remarkable, but still it can't unlatch the door of her tumble-down domain. Circling Stella's legs are long-ago scars from the chains she wore as a youth. Her bracelets, she calls them. When she worked at a famous circus, Stella had to balance on a pedestal for her most difficult trick. One day, she fell off and injured her foot. When she went lame and lagged behind the other elephants, the circus sold her to Mac. Stella's foot never healed completely. She limps when she walks, and sometimes her foot gets infected and she stands in one place for too long. Last winter, Stella's foot swelled to twice its normal size. She had a fever and she laid on the damp, cold floor of her domain for 5 days. They were very long days. Even now, I'm not sure she's completely better. She never complains though, so it's hard to know. At the Big Top Mall, no one bothers with iron shackles. A bristly rope tied to a bolt on the floor is all that's required. They think I'm too old to cause trouble, Stella says. Old age, she says, is a powerful disguise. All right, so we went over some of the questions that I'll be asking today. So remember, what does Stella call the chain she wore in her youth? And then Ivan describes himself as and hopefully you remember that from our story. And I hope you have a wonderful day.